So I dropped the amount we were spending by $50 and our lead cost dropped by almost 50%. If you're a gym or fitness studio owner currently running ads and you're trying to figure out a way to either improve or just make them work in general, in today's video, I'm going to show you exactly what we do to audit accounts after managing $1 million in annual ad spend for gyms in particular. I'm going to share with you exactly what we do to audit an account to figure out where there might be some issues and basically what to do moving forward in terms of how to incrementally improve your marketing moving forward so that you can not only get more leads, but more bookings, sales, and ultimately, memberships. Like that's the whole goal of the marketing, is to grow your membership base. And so that's what we're going to do in this video today. And so the first thing I want to talk about here is basically how do we start off, auditing an account. And so if you've been running ads for a long period of time, I want you to think of the data that you've collected and Facebook and Instagram just in general as these data platforms. Okay. Facebook and Instagram collect so much data across the board, and we just want to leverage that. And so with your ads that have been running, if you have quite a few ad campaigns that have run in the past, you're going to have so much data to go back and look through. And so just keep in mind that when going through any of these ad campaigns, all of these stats that show up in Business Manager are going to be stats that you can use to optimize your campaigns. And so the first thing and the first step in terms of our auditing and optimizing of our ad campaigns is to look first at the offer that we have running. Okay, the offer is king when it comes to marketing. And so we need to make sure that we're standing out and we have an offer that, is better than your competitors. If you're in a very competitive area, then that's going to be even more important to have a really good offer. And so I wanted to share with you a system for figuring out the best offer to run in your location. Because right now you have, probably competition that's running offers right now. And the last thing you want to do is model and copy what they're doing, because that means you're not going to stand out. And so I know there's a lot of bait and switch style ads and offers like free 6-week programs that are running. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to scratch that and show you a way to figure out exactly what your audience wants to start. And so the first thing that we do is we audit the offer. And so how we figure out if we're running the right offer is we actually run an offer test. And so I wanted to show you this to really paint the picture as to why it's so important to run an offer test. And so in this account here, we ran a few different variations of offers, and you can see them here: 7 days for free, 7 for $7, 5 days unlimited for free, 5 classes for $5, so on and so forth. And so you can see all the different options here. And so what I really wanted to show you here is the difference in the costs. Okay, $27 if we just ran 7 classes for $7. Okay, $17 for 5 for 5. Tone and Sculpt program, I think, was actually the winner back in the day when we ran this campaign. And that's why it has 35 leads, because we just kept it rolling because it was doing so well. And so down here, also 21 day for $21, core restore $3. And so what I'm getting at here is the first thing you need to optimize for is your offer. Is it the best offer you can be running? Okay. And so this is one part of the optimization step that you need to take a look at. And so when you come up with these offers, what you want to do is brainstorm some ideas that fit with your brand. Of course, you don't want to run things that aren't going to fit with your brand voice, but you want to make sure that they're irresistible offers. Okay, the better your offer, the better your results are going to be on these platforms. Now, I will just preface this, and we're going to get further into this in the video, but lead cost is a vanity metric. Okay, it doesn't really matter what the cost per lead is if you're not getting bookings, show ups, and ultimately membership sales. And so I'm going to show you a way to optimize those back-end stats a little bit later on in this video. And so once we have this offer, we can start to kind of progress forward. And I will just say this: although lead cost is a vanity metric, we have to start with that because it's the first metric of the campaign, which is getting leads in the first place. Then we need to look at bookings, shows, and the later on metrics in terms of how we can optimize the campaign further. And so once we have this offer, and just to kind of iterate here, this offer test we run, it's an isolated variable test. Okay, everything about each one of these different offers in the ad test is identical aside from this headline here where it says 21-day core restore. This will say 10-day pass here for this offer, 42-day slim and sleek. Okay, you get the idea here with how we structure, this offer test. Now, what do we do once we have this offer and it's starting to generate leads? That's when we need to optimize and look for, what's happening on the back end. And I want to show you an example that we just had for one of our studio partners. And we were basically running this campaign for them. And I wanted to really preface this idea here that, leads don't really mean anything. And so you'll see here, we had this campaign, it's getting about 110 leads for $6. Okay. And so you'd think, lead flow, this is pretty good. The problem was on the back end where we were looking at the metrics, the booking costs were actually pretty high. And so there is something you can set up in your account called conversion API tracking. And so this is something that we roll out where we can see the amount of bookings that are happening within each individual ad. So that way we're not just optimizing for leads, but we're actually looking at, how much is it costing to get a booking? Now, you will notice something in this video. I'm going to mention this again, but these metrics here are not fully accurate because, the new privacy laws that Facebook released, these aren't perfect, but they give you a general idea of what's working and what's not working. Where we're really looking at the actual stats are in our CRM. And so for the most part, we're using High Level as a system to track all this. And so within each pipeline, we're going to be able to see that. And so if I jump into this account, I'm going to show you basically the pipeline that we're tracking things in. And so you see here, this is paid. And we want to make sure we're separating paid versus organic versus any reactivations so that we can make sure we're tracking the right pipeline. Okay, so these are all leads that come from Facebook. And so I can track here the bookings, cancellations, no-shows, shows but didn't purchase, trial started, purchase membership, so on and so forth. And so something I wanted to mention here and how we optimize this is we realized that this was not attracting the right type of people to the studio. And so this was based on communications with the studio owner who was like, hey, look, we're attracting the wrong type of people. Even the ones that were booking, even though there was a lot less bookings, they weren't the right fit. And so what we had to optimize next, which is step 2, is the actual creative. Because you might have a creative that might be getting you a lot of cheap leads, but if it's attracting the wrong prospect, then Facebook's optimizing to find the wrong prospect for, your studio. And so what we did next is we actually looked at the creative to test and the targeting. And so the next step that we look at is the creative. And so what we did here, and this is going to really paint the picture here, is we changed the creative. And you're going to notice that this is getting, it's got 69 leads, $24 leads. Okay. However, if we compared the stats for the bookings and how much it's costing us to get bookings and the quality of the prospects coming into the studio, this is much higher and more profitable. I think it's like $35 to get a booking right now with this. This one was closer to 50 and the quality was a lot worse. Okay. And keep in mind, these are not fully accurate stats here in terms of bookings. So just take this with a grain of salt. This just gave us an idea of, how well is it doing? And so statistically on the back end, the $24 cost per lead is much more profitable for this campaign. Okay. So, if an agency is telling you, oh, our cost per lead is really good, but the quality is not the problem, there is some logic behind, whether or not quality is an issue or not. If there is a quality problem, there's things you can do to change it. And so all we did for the creatives in this case is we changed out to a more congruent image and creative that actually represented the brand. And so before we had the canvas style, now we have, videos of them doing the workouts in classes. And so the quality of the prospects coming in are a lot better, even though the costs seem to be a lot higher. Okay. And so right now we're trying to find the best video that's actually going to convert better at a lower cost. And so we have these $16 ones running right now. And so we're bringing the costs down while keeping the quality up. Okay. So step 3 in terms of the optimization is we really need to look at the audience to see if potentially we're targeting the wrong people. Okay. And so what you'll notice here is we actually had 3 audience tests that we did here. And so you'll notice here, this is the income. And so we basically just looked at the interests of income. So I'm going to take a look here in the ad set. If I scroll down to the ad level or the ad set level where we did targeting, you can see we added the interests of specific household incomes, and we wanted to stay in the top 50% is what we're targeting here. Okay, so we left out all of the 50% that were in the lower brackets and kept everybody above to see if that did better. Stat-wise, cost per leads were really high and no bookings came from this. Okay, we also ran the interest where we're basically just targeting like fitness interests. So in this case, it was CrossFit, health and wellness, physical fitness, and health club. This also did decent. It did get a few bookings. However, this broad audience targeting, which is basically just a 5-mile radius around the location, was just performing better than them both. And so we kept that one running, and that's the one that we have currently running right now in the studio. Okay. Now, once we have, tested a few of these variations, and we're starting to get bookings and starting to see how things are, improving, we then want to look back at the data to make adjustments in other ways. Okay. As I mentioned already, this is a data collection platform. So all of the information we've collected over running these campaigns, we can use to our advantage. And so step 4 is going to be optimizing placements. So usually when we start a campaign, in the ad set, we're going to be using automatic placements. Okay. And if I scroll down to the very bottom here, you can see here that we have Advantage Plus, and this is automatic placements that is turned on. So then what we do is we actually look further into this data. Okay. And I'm going to break things down and actually look at the reporting based on, who is actually becoming a lead and booking, depending on where they came from. So if they came from Instagram stories versus Instagram reels versus Instagram feed versus Facebook, so on and so forth. And so when I click on placements here, I can break it down based on where the leads are actually coming from. Okay, so we can see in here that the campaign that we ran originally had 144 leads. And so I can see this distribution in terms of, profile feed results, explore, and break things down here. And so what I'm looking at is what is actually getting results and what is not. Okay. And so by looking at this, I could see like in-stream videos, marketplace wasn't doing anything, explore pages weren't doing anything. And so in the ad set that we had currently running, we went back to it and we removed those placements. Okay. So I went into the actual placement settings here and I removed those placements from the targeting. So if I scroll down, we can see here, I've selected more than one. There we go. So you can see here, I've started to remove individual placements that I knew weren't converting and were just wasting money. Okay, so we're slowly starting to incrementally improve things while using the data that Facebook's giving us. Okay, so that is step 4, which is placements. Step 5 is going to be ad spend. Now, believe it or not, this is actually one of the biggest needle movers in terms of results and improving your campaign performance. And so now that we have kind of bookings coming through, our stats are pretty good on the back end, we're looking at, okay, let's see if we can start winning more in the bidding war. Okay, so if you have 12 gyms around your location and they're all running ads, the problem with that is you're competing with them. And if you're running only 40 bucks a day or 50 bucks a day in ad spend, but they're running 80 bucks a day or 100 bucks a day, well, you're just losing out. They're just eating up the newsfeed and you don't even have a chance to compete. And so what I wanted to show you is what we did for this client. And so we basically ran an isolated variable test, so similar to the offer testing, where we just tested differences in ad spend. And so what I wanted to show you is in this account, we had been running at $200 a day for probably a year and a half. Their average cost per lead was around 27 bucks. And you can see here, we spent around $100,000 in ad spend. Now, what ended up happening here was, although they were profitable with $27 leads, we wanted to figure out if there was a way for us to keep the volume the same, but reduce how much we were paying in ad spend. Because what ends up happening with spend is you can spend too little where you're not, beating anybody out with the bidding war. You can spend too much where you're overspending, or you can be, in that range where you're spending more than everybody else. So you're winning in the bidding competition, but you're not overspending. And so I wanted to figure out if we were overspending. And you'll see here, this is kind of some recent tests that we've been rolling out. I tested 50 bucks a day, and that was $23 leads. So the cost came down actually with lowering the spend. However, in this case here, with the lower spend, the volume wasn't there when we were spending 200 bucks a day versus 50. So then I did 100, same cost per lead as before. I did 125, even more expensive, 40 bucks a day. Okay. And then we found this sweet spot at $150 a day. Okay. So I dropped the amount we were spending by 50 bucks, and our lead cost dropped by almost 50% just by finding that sweet spot. And so the logic here is that there must be a lot of competition in the area that are eating up the newsfeed. But at that $150 a day price point, we're just above everybody else where we're eating up the newsfeed, and we're not spending so much that Facebook's kind of like forcing itself to find people to get to opt into your ads. It's just kind of this optimal price point. And so this is something you should look to test as well, is what is the optimal spend at your location? And so the best way to figure that out is just to do these tests where you're taking the same ad and you're just duplicating it in different ad sets with different spend. Okay, so that's exactly what we did. And like I said here, we were able to drop lead cost by 50% just by doing that one test alone. Okay, so that was step 5. The last step, which is kind of the trickiest to explain, is going to be the actual ad account, so this entire ad account, or your actual Facebook page. Okay, so because, if you've had a page or an ad account running for over a year, Facebook has all this data about the performance of your account, the user experience your account gives their users. And so the problem with this is if you have an account that's been around for a while and you've been running, these free 6-week programs, and a lot of people might report those ads, the problem is you're giving all of Facebook's users a negative experience because they don't want to see those ads. And so what ends up happening is you get flagged on the back end, and Facebook upcharges you for your costs per 1,000 impressions. And so essentially, to simplify, your ad costs just increase. Because if you think of it logically, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, these platforms' main objective is to keep you on their platform, right? The longer you stay on there, the more money they make. And so if you're giving their users a negative experience, they just increase your costs because they don't really want your ads going to their users because you're giving them a bad experience. Okay, so that's the logic. I know it's a little bit difficult to wrap your head around, but what I wanted to share with you was an example of an account where we basically just changed the ad account. And so this account I was just in here, they had a pre-existing account. Unfortunately, I can't get into their ad account anymore because it's disabled. And so it just completely doesn't let me into it. So here's an example of one here. And so because this account got fully disabled after some time, it had such a bad history that I can't even get into the ad account anymore. However, when we just simply change the ad account, so we basically just jump from one ad account to the new one, their lead cost dropped by 50%. So they were spending like $20-25 a lead. We changed nothing in their entire campaign, and their costs dropped significantly. So their lead costs, $7 a lead. Before, in their old account, it was like, double this price, triple this price. And so in some cases, what you might want to try, if there's just nothing seems to be working, is actually changing your entire, ad account. And in some cases, it might also be linked to your Facebook page, which can be problematic as well. And so those are some optimization tips as well. So try a brand new ad account. You will want to warm it up. So spend a little bit of money, spend about $25 over the course of about a week to 2 weeks, just running a brand awareness campaign. And then after that point, run the exact same ads that you had been running in your current account in a separate one and see if that changes things. Unfortunately, Facebook doesn't let you know if, you have a negative account history. And so that's just a little tip there. One last thing I will mention about this is you can actually start to see some signs that your account is giving a negative user experience if your quality, engagement, and conversion rankings are very low. So let me show you one where it's actually live. And so in this account here, we'll be able to see different metrics here for quality of the actual ad performance. And so you can see this under the ad level here. And so what we're looking at is anything below average. Okay, if everything is below average here in these stats and you see it amongst all of your ads running, that's usually a good sign that you're not really keeping your ads relevant to the audience, or it's just giving them a bad experience. So keep that in mind. These are some metrics that we use. Facebook has made changes to these metrics over the years. And so if you have ads that don't have any scores here, it's likely because of that, or you're running a dynamic creative, which it won't show up. That's it for the optimization of your account and auditing. There's a whole lot of stuff that you can do once you start to look at the data and actually start to make tests possible. Make sure you're isolating your variables, but once you can start to look at the data and start to make changes based on actual data driven things that are happening in your account, it's going to make a hell of a difference. Hope this was helpful.